Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to RWBY Vol6 Ch8. I believe I got that right. Yes. Okay, so we're back with another episode of RWBY, and last time we had one of the best episodes we've had in a long time, and I'd even go as far to say one of my favorites, personal favorites, episodes in the entire series. Because the last episode, it gave us the backstory, or at least part of the backstory, of Maria Calavera. Maria is a former silver-eyed warrior known as the Grim Reaper, a huntress who was known for wearing a skull-like mask and hood, and going around slaying Grim using a scythe that also involved gravity dust. So the scythe utilized gravity dust in order to create this magnetic pole, to where each part of the scythe, it was like it could either be used two-handed or it could connect together to create a one-handed weapon. And they had these switches that activated the gravity dust, allowing each side or one side to come to the other. And so in Maria's backstory, we find out after taking out a Nevermore, she ends up coming across this crocodile faunus named Tak. Tak and her associates attack Maria under the orders of their master, who is presumably Salem, but we can't say for sure. But considering the fact that it seems like the reason that their master wants her gone is because of her eyes, I would think it'd have to be Salem. So it's just, they get into a fight, and in the end, it's just Maria and Tak left, and Tak manages to slice out Maria's eyes. Yeah, I've mentioned before, I'm not a huge fan of eye horror, and it's uncomfortable seeing that happen. But, I mean, I've seen a lot worse, so it wasn't as bad as it could have been for me. I've seen a lot worse eye horror, let me tell you that. You ever see the movie See No Evil, starring WWE's Kane? Not the best in terms of story, but yeah, the eye horror in that is not something I like to think about. And I just reminded myself of it, so yeah. Either way. So we also finally got to Argus, and while there, we met one of Jaune's older sisters. What is her name? Saffron Arc, or Saffron Kata Arc, because she is married, and we met her wife, Tara Kata Arc, and their child as well, who I don't actually remember the name of. Now, in someone's reaction, I don't remember who it was, someone brought up, like, okay, like, how did the baby come to be? And the baby has the same skin tone as Tara, so I'm thinking maybe Tara already had the baby? Or maybe, when Tara and Saffron get married, I mean, there's all kinds of different ways, like, they could have had a donor, like a sperm donor. They could have had, there's all kinds of different ways. It's very possible for Tara to have gotten pregnant and given birth. So, yeah. But I think the big thing there is the LGBT representation, which it's just cool to see that. It really is. And to see it so just accepted in the world. Like, no one said anything. No one made a big deal. And it's just like, okay, this is a thing. Cool. This is Saffron's wife, Tara. Cool. No one cares. It's good to see that kind of integration, as I mentioned. Yeah. But the episode ended with them finding out that Team Juniper, or I guess just Team Junior now, because there's no P, no Pyrrha. They already, I guess, tried to go to the military base to get some assistance and everything in their journey to continue on to Atlas. But it didn't go so well. And the very end of the episode kind of left off with Team RWBY standing in front of the gates as they closed. So I'm thinking that this episode's going to have to do with that, and just going to probably have to do with them trying to figure out what to do next. Because I think that the military base probably is not going to be any help. So it's going to be interesting. Now, we also need to have Team Junior and all find out about everything that happened. All the stuff with Ozpin and everything, and Jin. Just everything that was found out. Maria being a Silver-Eyed Warrior. We've got to have that bit of debriefing, so that's going to be interesting to see if that happens here and where that goes. Now, the opening does show Jaune slamming Oscar against a wall. And, again, someone, I don't remember who, because I watch a few different reactions to this, a few different people's reactions to this series. Someone mentioned that the walls of Saffron and Tara's house kind of looks like the walls from the opening. So I'm thinking that what's probably going to happen is that they're going to tell Team Junior what happened, and Jaune's going to get upset. Very upset. And he's going to possibly take it out on Oscar, who unfortunately is just kind of a victim of all of this. Like, it's not Oscar's fault at all, but I guess we'll see. Maybe he'll, like, think it's Ozpin or something, or maybe Ozpin will make a return. I don't know. It's really hard to say. There's a lot that goes into it, a lot that could happen. We'll just have to see. Either way, I'm really loving this volume so far. Every volume of this series has been better than the last. And Volume 6 is very, very much on its way to continuing that. But we have to see where it goes. We've got quite a bit to go still, so let's just get into it. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts, and will contain spoilers to the episode. So that being said, thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. Okay, and we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so this episode had a few uncomfortable moments, but that doesn't mean it was bad. In fact, it was actually a very good episode. In terms of a lot of factors. There was some good humor at the beginning. There was some really intense stuff that rightfully so made you uncomfortable, which is important to do in that kind of situation with that kind of context. And then the last part of the episode with the beginning of the Silver Eyes training was really hopeful and fascinating and lore involving. Excuse me. So yeah, a lot to love. So let's just talk about it with each part. There's basically 3 parts to this episode. So the first part is Team RWBY and I guess Team Junior behind them going to the gates of the military base. There they meet Cordova, the leader of the base, who is an old enemy of Maria. And Cordova is ridiculously and delightfully over the top with her Atlesian patriotism. Let's put it that way. Now, she's said basically that she'd be willing to have her men escort Weiss back, but that basically in order to do so, Weiss would have to forsake her friends. And at this point, she very clearly looked at Blake and used some wording that very clearly was implying racism. So Cordova, we know at least, is racist against Faunus. which is... let's talk about that for a moment. This might be a little bit of a longer series of afterthoughts, but I really do want to talk about this. I've talked about it before, but let's discuss this here as well. Obviously, the faunus in this series are an allegory for minorities in real life. Whether black people, Asians, Middle Eastern, Latin people, all kinds of minorities that are discriminated against unfairly by so many people in this world, especially in our current political climate here in America. There's so many examples and cases of racist-driven motives for murders, attacks, discrimination in the workplace or in public, and so much more. A lot of it is against people of Middle Eastern descent or who have darker olive skin, especially because of the entire political climate with our current administration, basically demonizing those kinds of people as being evil and dangerous. And there's always been this kind of racism against black people as well, just straight up, that never really went away. It kind of lessened, but it's still very much there. And Rooster Teeth, when creating the series, when Monty and all of them created this series, they introduced the faunus as sort of an allegory for that. This group of people who were different in a way. In this case, because they had these animal-like physical traits, and in some cases, some more non-physical stuff, such as being able to see almost perfectly in the dark. And they're introduced as, like, pretty much right off the bat in Season 1 as being discriminated against. We see it with Carden mercilessly bullying Velvet. We see it with the way that Weiss ends up reacting to Blake when she finds out she's a faunus and everything, and just Weiss's initial thoughts on the White Fang and everything, and so much more. And while Weiss does end up becoming a lot better and getting past that, a lot of people, as we see, the world has not. The world continues to discriminate against the faunus, and we'll even get more examples of that as the seasons go on. We see with Menagerie that the faunus in general are, for the most part, relegated to their own island. It's just like, we don't really want you as a whole blended in with our society. We're just going to give you your own land. And it's just like, that's not right, obviously. And, I mean, even though some things have gotten better after the the Menagerie forces helped save Haven and everything, there's still obviously signs of this going around, and it's just it's one of those situations, one of those kinds of concepts in this universe that is really hard to watch, because it's like, because of knowing that kind of thing in real life, it's just like horrible. I've always despised racism. I've never understood why or how people could treat others like that. It's disgusting. It's evil. And I mean, I've had to stick up for friends on many occasions. I'm sorry, it bothers me to see that. And whenever I see it in a movie or a TV series, it really just gets to me. And this is no exception, even though it's being done in an allegorical way with these animal-like people, the faunus. it's still very clearly what it's representing. And it's still very uncomfortable to watch, to see people be treated like this just because they're different. We should be celebrating diversity, not demonizing it. And it's just like, it's one of those things that I have a very hard time forgiving. I have this belief that anyone can be forgiven and anyone can be redeemed from their actions. But racism, sexism, that kind of stuff is one of the hardest kinds of things for me to forgive. And so when I see a character like Cordova here being a racist piece of shit, she instantly makes my shit list. Like, it doesn't matter what her character is like otherwise. I mean, yes, she seems like a bit of a militant piece of shit otherwise, but even if she wasn't, even if she was a nice person otherwise, that kind of thing is just, it's one of those things I have a hard time forgiving because it pisses me off that much. So it's like, just right off the bat, I can't fucking stand her. And I think that's intentional. Rooster Teeth has said before that they're all about diversity and inclusion and stuff. They've shown it through their work. They've said it during convention panels and stuff. And it's just like, they're clearly painting these kinds of characters as the bad guys, as the assholes, as the people who piss you the fuck off. You're not supposed to like them. You're not supposed to cheer for them or understand them or excuse their actions or beliefs. And the problem is, when you have this kind of character being so insanely patriotic towards their land, in this case Atlas, it also worries you that this is kind of a thing for Atlas, that Atlas might be this kind of kingdom, that it's not as accepting, not as not as diverse. And I hate to say it this way, but it's kind of maybe even foreshadowed by the Schnees. The Schnees, let's be honest, for lack of a better way to put it, they're as white as can be. Not only are they literally white in terms of their skin color, but they have white hair, they have blue eyes. They're basically almost albino, pretty much. They're almost pretty much straight up albinos. But the thing is, they're very clearly that kind of that kind of representation. And I mean, it's even been said that the Schnee Dust Company has had some questionable things going on with Faunus. So it's very clearly kind of implying that these kinds of people are the norm in Atlas. And when we see the party, the dinner party, that was raising funds after the fall of Beacon and all, a lot of the people were acting like that, especially this one woman that we saw that Weiss got pissed off at. Really, the only ones that we truly know of who are from Atlas, who are really, like, going against that kind of, I guess you could say stereotype, are Weiss, Winter, and Ironwood. While Ironwood and Winter are definitely are very militaristic, they're clearly not bigoted assholes like this. And I mean, we see that especially with the way Ironwood acts in that during that dinner party kind of thing, or whatever you would call it, as well. Like when he stands up for Weiss after what she does, and when you see him arguing with Jacques during the times he does, we can definitely see that he even though he is very over-militaristic with things, he does have people's best interests in mind. He is trying to do his best for others. And he doesn't have these selfish, bigoted desires and mindsets when it comes to this stuff. Really, these are the only three from Atlas we truly know are like this. I mean, other than maybe some of the other students we've met. I don't remember at this moment, though, which ones were confirmed from Atlas. I just don't remember. Excuse me. Felt like I was gonna knew that was coming. I was saying I felt like I was gonna sneeze, and then it comes back and I sneeze. Ugh. But I've talked long enough about just that part. I did want to bring that up because it's kind of a big deal for me. Like that kind of concept and storytelling in a show revolving around an allegory for that kind of racism, or even if the show or movie shows racism against these colored people in general. It's like, I think it's important to show that kind of stuff, but it still makes me uncomfortable. The second part of this was also kind of uncomfortable, because we had Team Junior being told everything. And we see that both Nora and Jaune, and especially the latter, are really upset. Now, Ren seems upset as well, but not to the same level. But Nora's peeved. You could tell by the way she's speaking, the way she's acting and everything. She's pissed. But more so Jaune loses his mind here, and he attacks Oscar, because his belief is like, oh, what, isn't Ozpin inside his head? And he's thinking, of course, like, oh, Ozpin and Oscar's their minds are becoming one and all, right? Their souls are bonding together. And so even if Ozpin's not actively there, he's still there, right? And he even questions, maybe Ozpin's been there the entire time. Maybe he's been in control this entire time and we don't even know it. And the thing is, he's bringing up valid concerns, and he's clearly pissed off. And it's just extremely uncomfortable, the fact that he takes out that rage on Oscar. Because again, Oscar's innocent and all that. Oscar's a victim too. Which is why after what happened, he ran away. I really hope nothing happens to him. Oscar doesn't deserve to get hurt or die because of this. But here's the problem I also have with this scene as well. It's still demonizing Ozpin. Ozpin is still not at fault here. Yes, once again, as I said in the past, he could have revealed things. He could have been honest with them before. He could have not hidden so much. But he's not the bad guy in all this. Hell, Ozpin is a victim too. Just like Oscar, just like everyone else here. The true bad guy is Salem. She's been the villain from the beginning. It's not Ozpin's fault that any of this happened. Has Ozpin made mistakes? Sure. But this is not his fault, and he's not the one to blame. Yet they're demonizing him over, honestly, over Salem. They're acknowledging Salem is still a villain, but they're treating it like they're treating it like Ozpin is like behind everything. I think I mentioned in another reaction, they're basically acting like Ozpin killed their loved ones or something. Again, yes, Ozpin should have told them. Ozpin should have been honest and open with them. But otherwise, he did nothing wrong. And he does not deserve to be treated like this. Honestly, he doesn't. Not by Team RWBY, not by Team Junior, not by Crow, not by anyone. And it's irritating to continue to watch this, to watch the show seemingly place the blame on him as if he's the one at fault. I'm really hoping by the end of the season, Team RWBY and Juniper come to realize this, come to realize that they've been completely unfair towards Ozpin, and that they apologize for it. Because their anger at him is almost completely unjustified, especially to the level it's at. I mean, especially to the level where Crow straight up punched a young boy in the face. Where Jaune shoved that young boy into the wall that he just before had punched a hole into. These reactions are way too overboard. And it's really irritating, to be completely honest. And I think that's what made that entire scene that's what made it uncomfortable the most. Not even so much as just the anger and general upset feeling around the room. More so just that they were still that venomously they just had that much venomous animosity towards Ozpin still for something that's not his fault, something that he is not responsible for, something that he is not at fault for, something that is all on Salem, and something that he is getting completely unfairly and unjustly blamed for. Despite honestly him being the biggest victim of them all. But then we get the third part of the episode, which was probably the easiest to watch, and probably one of the most fascinating. Because we had RWBY starting her training with Maria, and nothing really happens yet. It's more along the lines of Maria's just talking to her and teaching her. Maria finds out the very little bit that RWBY knows, and helps her come to understand stuff. We also find out Maria's semblance at the same time, which is her quick reflexes and just kind of this sixth sense, like, she has very heightened senses. Let's put it that way. She has extremely heightened senses and reflexes. And it's really cool. I think that's a really just good overall semblance. But we find out more about the Silver Eyes, and we get confirmation that the Silver Eyes are a gift from the God of Light in the same way that the Grimm come from the God of Darkness. Now, one question had been coming from back from when we originally got Jin's flashbacks and stuff. Well, the biggest question was, how did humanity start again after the God of Darkness wiped them all out? And back then I kind of came up with two different ideas. One, either just by natural evolution humanity did form again after a shit ton of years, or more likely, and it's actually being kind of supported by stuff now as well, the God of Light restarted everything before he truly left. Because we saw that the God of Light didn't leave in the same way that the God of Darkness did. He just kind of evaporated while the God of Darkness, like, just blasted off through the moon. So, and we know that the God of Light did bring Ozma back. So I'm thinking the God of Light didn't actually leave right away. I'm thinking what happened is that the God of Light was still actually there for the time, up until he brought Ozma back. And that he wasn't interfering in anything, he wasn't controlling much of anything, but he did restart humanity. And in doing so, he was the one who allowed this new batch of humanity to have their semblances of magic. He's the one who probably guided them into discovering dust. And he's the one who I would have to assume, because he recreated them, gave a small portion of them the Silver Eyes, his Silver Eyes, to allow them to combat the forces that Salem was now controlling. And he only gave it to like a small amount so that they would continue down in bloodlines and stuff. Because, I mean, it's very clear now that the Silver Eyes are definitely inherited by blood. Ruby got hers from Summer, who I would assume got hers from her parent, one of her parents. And we know Maria got hers from her father, so, yeah. It's definitely passed down genetically. So, I'm thinking the God of Light probably was, again, there, but not, like, actively there. Like, not, like, in physical form, almost, you could say. And I'm thinking he probably left after bringing Ozma back. And that's when also the God of Light, created all the relics and stuff that Ozma had to find. And everything. That's when all the relics came to be. So it's like, I just feel what we found out today with this episode, with the God of Light being the originator of the Silver Eyes, everything kind of stems from that idea that the God of Light created a lot more than just that, and did a lot more than that before truly leaving the Earth. Or remnant, I guess, now. And that's cool. That's cool that this episode, without actually straight up outright explaining that, did give us all of this information. That's cool. I think that's a very good way to do it. It's very subtle. It's very well handled. It doesn't come across as forcing the idea down our throats. But yeah, and then we also get confirmation that the Silver Eyes actually have multiple different uses. They can turn enemies to stone, they can evaporate them, they can do all kinds of stuff, apparently. And that's cool, because that was something that was actually brought up in the comments, I think, on my last reaction. Because it was questioned on, maybe the Silver Eyes only evaporate if they're used at, like, their full power, full potential or something. Someone mentioned that. Or maybe that Ruby was just more powerful than Maria, or something. And that's why Maria only turned it to stone. And why Ruby, who originally only turned the Wyvern to stone, but eventually her power was more powerful here and was able to just evaporate the apathy. But no, apparently the Silver Eyes actually have multiple purposes. They can do all of this kind of stuff. And I just really like that confirmation. So this episode did a lot of good stuff. My only real complaint is, again, still the animosity towards Ozpin that is completely undeserved. Otherwise, the rest of the uncomfortable stuff was still well done. That's real. And now, though, Oscar is missing. Oscar ran away because of what Sean did, and now that's bad because for multiple reasons. So we've gotta find him now. And Crow is off drinking and not answering his phone, so who knows what's going on there. A lot of people have been saying that there's been some possible hints that something really bad is going to happen. Some people have been saying that they've been getting some feelings similar to Volume 3. And that it might be going in a similar direction to Volume 3. And if you remember, at the end of Volume 3, that's when Yang lost her arm. That's when both Pyrrha and Penny died. That's when basically everything went to shit, and the entire tone of the series overall changed. And if they're planning to do something like that again, I have two thoughts on that. One, why? Like, I mean, I get it. It's been a good amount of time. Now would be a time to definitely do something big again. But at the same time, if you're going to try to do something on the same scale as what happened before, it would just feel like you're copying what you already did. So if they do something big, something that, like, someone dies or something really bad happens, then they have to do it in a way that makes it feel different than Season 3. They have to make it feel like its own thing. Because otherwise, it'll just feel like they just copied their own thing. Like they just, they're just doing the same thing all over again. And that, it just makes it lack originality and just makes it feel all kinds of, honestly boring. If it's just the same thing again. But my second thing to note regarding if this is what's going to happen is this, if they do this, it's got to be something that is still impactful. And the opening might be hinting that it will be Crow. The opening kind of shows Crow falling backwards while drinking, falling backwards, being pulled backwards by these grim hands. And that could be implying his death. And a lot of people have been saying that since the opening was first released and everything. A lot of people have been saying that it possibly is going to imply his death. And that everything's going... And that's going to really be the next big dark moment in the series. And the thing is, I could completely see it happening. With his semblance being his bad luck and everything, honestly, I could completely believe it. And now, I don't know how it would happen, but yeah, it just seems like something that would definitely shake things up. Because ever since, was it Volume 3 when he first appeared? I think it was. Yeah, it would have had to have been. Ever since Volume 3, when Crow first actually appeared on screen as a character, he's been really popular. People love Crow. He's a really popular character. He's voiced excellently by Vic Mignogna. And yeah, it would definitely leave an impact on the fandom to kill him off. In the same way it did when they did it with Pyrrha and Penny. Both of them were really popular characters, especially Pyrrha. So, them killing off a really popular character again, and someone like Crow, who, at this point, after everything has happened, and after he's been with them now, it would definitely leave an impact. And I think would be a very smart move. It would suck, but it would be a smart move. Now, I would hope that if this does happen, it happens after everything is made up with Ozpin. Because I don't want Crow dying, still thinking that Ozpin's a bad guy. Still having this really warped sense of, well, everything that's been going on and everything they found out. Because, once again, Ozpin's not at fault here, and it's just their emotions and their anger at the fact this was hidden that is making them believe it. Believe that Ozpin is at fault. Ozpin is not at fault. He's a victim too. He's the biggest victim of them all. Heck, they should be comforting him. They should feel sorry for him. they should be encouraging him, not berating him and acting like he's the devil himself. But yeah, it's like if Crow does die, which I think is a very real possibility, I definitely don't want it to happen until after Oscar is back and they make up with Ozpin. And here would be the ideal thing. So with the next episode or episodes 1 or 2, they are able to find, they search for and are able to find Oscar. They apologize to Oscar, especially Jaune, and then they realize that they were unfairly treating Ozpin as well. And so they manage to coax Ozpin out and apologize to him. But then everything continues to go really wrong, and something happens to where, like, I don't know, some kind of Grim or something, probably. And in this Grim attack or whatever, we have 2 things happen. Crow ends up being killed, and RWBY has to actually go into her trial by fire, as Maria mentioned, and try to use her silver eyes. Which, if Crow did die, would definitely help trigger things with that. So, yeah. And the last thing I do want to mention, real quick, is the thing that RWBY brought up with the fact, or the thing that was brought up, that the silver eyes only work on Grim. And RWBY brought up, oh, but it originally activated with Cinder. It reacted to Cinder, not the Grim Wyvern. And it's like, so did Cinder have the Grim arm back then? I don't think she did. So why did it react to her back then? And could it be because she had maiden powers at that point? Or actually, at that point, yeah, she would have had all of the maiden powers when that actually happened, because she absorbed Pierre's powers right before that happened. So was that able to happen because of the maiden powers, maybe? But then why would the Silver Eyes attack the maiden powers? Or go after the maiden powers? There's a lot to question. That is the big mystery that I feel like is really brought on by this episode. I guess hopefully we'll find out. But yeah. So, sorry for these afterthoughts being so long. I just had a lot to talk about regarding all of this. This was a very good episode. Tell me your thoughts, though, in the comments below. What did you think of everything that was revealed this episode? What do you think of everything that was brought back, everything that was talked about, all this kind of social commentary that continues to be brought up? Tell me your thoughts on all of that and more in the comments below, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.
And though you've come through many obstacles, shed tears along the way, you're still standing, live, love, laugh.